One of the best practices for responsive web design is to design for mobile first. And this means something different than whether you draw your layout for your desktop or your mobile or your phone first. It isn't so much that. It has to do with how you do the coding. So it means that you design your CSS sheet, your style sheet, so that it displays mobile first, and then you use app media queries to change it for tablet and desktop. So start with your phone code. Now, we've already got our style for the desktop. I'm going to put that in a comment so we can work on the style for the phone layout first. The style rules that are going to change are the header and the nav. That's most of them. We'll change a few other things, but mostly it's going to be these. And these are the settings that we currently have for the desktop. So I'm just going to simply put a note here that these are desktop styles. And then I'm going to copy them because I can use this as a beginning point for my phone layout. It won't be the same, but some of the things will be, and we'll change it. And notice that the phone layout I'm going to put directly in the CSS and not inside an app media rule. So let's start by changing the columns. So one of the things we know is very different about it is that it's all in one column. So now each column width is 100%, and we can do that with an attribute style rule. And the attribute we want to do it on is on the class, and specifically on the classes that start with column hyphen. So we can create a style block specifically on that attribute. And inside this style block, we'll put width as 100%. Notice that this is responsive because it's a percent instead of an actual number. And then we can go see how that changes. So when we save that and refresh, nothing happens. And this is because of the order. So here we're setting the width to 100%, and then down here later in the style sheet, we're setting all these different values for the width. So this becomes a problem for what we want to implement. These widths are for our desktop and not for our mobile device. So we want to make sure that these are added only when we're doing the mobile. I mean, not the mobile, only when we're doing the desktop. So we're going to comment these out just like we did comment out the other desktop styles. Now these ones can stay the same because we still can let them float left and have padding and clear it after. So now let's go ahead and save and refresh. And there we get the columns are all 100%. And that lays everything out almost the way we want. That gives us the columns the way we're thinking of them. And as we get smaller, then these columns stay in place and we get that narrower look that we expect when we're on a phone. All right, let's see what things we want to change now that we're doing mobile first. So notice that the header's really big, and so when we go in mobile, we want to make that smaller. So we'll go up here in the header, and where it's 200, we'll just make it a little bit smaller. We'll make it 160. When we do that, we're going to want to change that image to only be 160 as well, so it fits inside. And we refresh and that gets narrower. Now notice how our image got distorted. And that's because the width is set in the HTML. So we want to change it so it'll stay proportional. So we don't know what the width is actually going to be. So we'll just set it to auto, and that will keep it proportional. So as the height changes, so will the width, and it will stay the right proportion. Now about the heading, we can leave the color the same, but notice the padding top, we can reduce that and make it smaller. So I'm going to put it down to 40, and our left padding can be narrower because our picture got narrower as well. So I'm going to downsize that to 200 pixels. So we save that and refresh, and it stays a little bit tighter and allows for a better look. Now this looks good in handling distractions and in procrastination and in home, But when we get to the learning techniques for effective learning, it gets long enough, even though we gave it that much space, that it spills over. So we need to come up with a different solution for this particular header. And the one way we're going to fix this is just simply make the heading shorter, so that when we're on a phone, instead of saying learning techniques for effective learning, it can just say learning techniques. Now to do this, we're going to make a change both in the HTML and in the CSS. So in the HTML, we're going to go to where it says learning techniques for effective learning, and right here I'm going to add a span. And then I'm going to close it right here, so I capture the part that I want to hide. And that's really what I'm going to do, is in style, I'm going to go ahead and say inside the header, inside the heading 1, when I have a span, what I want to do is I want to set the display to none. If we do that and we refresh, then we get that look where it just doesn't display that span. So now we can go to all of them, and now they're all 2 words long. That still looks a little tight, and there's some space here. Let's go ahead and move this image over some more. And we can do that with this padding left. And let's set it to 8, and then refresh. And there, that moves our image over, which fits nicer and gives us a little bit more space here. So you just make things shift until they look the way that you want them to look. And there we fixed our header for the phone device.